earlier that day, but he didn't ever remember seeing Reeves after the fact. So there's a bit of a conflict of stories there.
So we can't pin it down?
Not totally, yeah.
Come on, that was a wrestling pun.
Oh. See, I don't know wrestling.
This guy's good.
So either way, Reeves and Lemon and Condon end up back at Reeves's house. It should be mentioned, Lemon was living with Reeves at the time, but it wasn't, she had no ownership of the house or anything like that. Somewhere near midnight, after Reeves had gone to bed, after a heavy night of drinking, an impromptu party started downstairs when Bliss and Carol Van Ronkel, who we're going to call Van Ronkel from here on out, because Rip Van Ronkel isn't actually part of this story. I just like saying his name.
Okay.
So Bliss and Van Ronkel arrive at the Reeves home around midnight.
Yeah, so
it's
these people are just like I guess they're just like all late night partiers or something.
Yeah.
Typically, I don't just go dropping in on people's houses at midnight myself.
I don't really either, but so it's
I get the feeling these people drank together on a semi-regular basis and probably said, "Hey, it's a little after 12. She'll be up. Let's go over and see if the lights are on. If they are, we'll walk in and we'll have some drinks."
Must have been.
Well, it sounds like they were maybe making a bit of a ruckus. And so Reeves kind of storms downstairs and complains about the noise. Okay, this is all according to the four people who were drinking heavily there that night. Reeves comes down and he's angry about the noise and why are you having this party? And Lemon kind of says, well, we're just partying. And Reeves somehow calms down and decides to stay and drink a little more.
Always a good idea.
Sure.
Yeah.
But after his one drink, he apparently pops back right into a bad mood and storms back upstairs, which I actually identify deeply with.
Why? Because people have woke you up?
No, I just if being woken up in the middle of the night, I'm like, I hate everything, and then I'm like, all right, fine, I guess I'm here. No, I hate it. It's the worst. I dip back and forth pretty quickly. Anyway, an unidentified amount of time later.
A drink's worth.
Maybe a drink's worth. So probably around 1:30 or 2. The partiers heard a, quote, single gunshot from upstairs. Bliss ran upstairs into Reeves's bedroom and found him lying across the bed, dead. His naked body was facing upward. His feet were on the floor.
His face up on the bed.
Yeah.
When you say upward.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Sorry. So, to explain it a little bit better, I guess, investigators thought that he had been sitting on the edge of the bed and then killed himself and he just fell back on the bed. So you can imagine that picture. Investigators found a .30 caliber Luger pistol between his feet, which they thought had fallen from his hand.
Makes sense.
Statements made by the witnesses to the police on that night, as well as press a little bit later, essentially agree, though there are some discrepancies, and there was a fairly significant delay in reporting this.
It took him half an hour to call the police, didn't it? More.
None of the guests seemed to be really concerned with the delay, though. They just said, I don't know, we were shocked, it was late, we were drunk. That's why it took us so long to call you.
Rather
couldn't find the phone.
They had to get their story straight.
Yeah, no, none of that. The police did say that all the witnesses were really, really, really drunk, and so getting coherent stories from them was almost impossible that night. So there you go.
And there ends George Reeves.
There ends George Reeves. Apparently,
sad.
Death of Superman.
Death of one of the many Supermans. Yeah. So that is the story. We're going to flesh the story out a little bit more when we talk about theories, but it is that time.
What time?
Theories time.
Oh.
But before we do that, let's take a break.
This is the worst bus ride ever. The tension is unbearable. The screaming waves of panic and fear just aren't helping. There's a man with a knife, and you can see him so clearly. Every freaking detail. Are you sweating? Yeah, you are. What possessed you to get on this bus? You knew that it was creepy and dark and cold out, and yet you still did it. Why? Why did you begin the next chapter of the audio thriller you've been listening to all week? This is your own fault, and you know it. But that's the great thing about audiobooks. You scare the bejesus out of yourself by helping you get the next scary book on your list. Support for today's show comes from Audible. Audible's content includes an unmatched selection of audiobooks, original audio shows, news, comedy, and more from the leading publishers, broadcasters, entertainers, and business information providers. Unlike a streaming or rental service with Audible, you own your books, so you can access them anywhere, anytime, from almost any device, including your iPhone, iPad, Android, Amazon Fire tablet, and Windows Phone, and probably some other things in there as well. Plus, they've got the great listen guarantee, so if you don't like your title, you can swap it for a new one. And not to mention, Audible channels give you a collection of exclusive originals, short stories, and comedy. So you always have something new to listen to. And since it's getting close to Halloween, I suggest that you listen to Closet Treats by Paul E. Cooley. I've been listening to Paul's work for years, and if you want a story that will get your blood pumping, then I'd recommend it. He's been giving me creepy nightmares for many years. Get a free audiobook with a 30-day trial at audible.com/sideways. That's audible.com/sideways, SIDEWAYS, for a free audiobook with your 30-day trial. Because bejesus is a real thing, and you should get it scared out of you every now and again.
And we're back. Okay, theories. Yeah.
Cool.
And actually, before we go too far into theories, I just want to pause to apologize. We're all sitting in a room in Portland, Oregon, which is like pretty much just surrounded by fire right now. Mm-hmm. And so there's
this might be our last podcast.
Well, no, there's
a little smoky.
They're a little smoky, and houses don't seal and blah blah. Blah. So
especially in my house.
If you get a couple of voice cracks or anything in there, we apologize. We'll try to keep it to a minimum, but it might happen.
We'll cut out the coughing though.
We'll try.
Okay. I can't cut that out. Damn.
Dang it. All right. So our first theory
Let's talk about theories,
is the official story, which is that he committed suicide.
Of course. I'll buy this one.
The suicide angle did focus a lot on, as you can imagine, being the face of Superman is both a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
We've seen this happen with actors contemporarily where they have a really hard time getting cast in any kind of roles after they play these like big signature roles in these franchises because people just think like, oh, that's just Harry Potter.
But
right?
the thing about it is these days you get typecast to say Harry Potter. Well, you made a boatload of money playing Harry Potter, so even if you never get another job again, you're
okay.
set.
Yeah.
Not so for George Reeves.
Yeah. So he was struggling to find acting jobs after The Adventures of Superman had been canceled. During because of the 4-week thing, but then after because it had been canceled by this point.
Yeah, because when he initially started, I think he had filmed a movie, and I can't think of something in the Garden of Eden or something like that. I can't think of the name of it, and it had such a long schedule to get it out in the world that the first season of Superman had aired already. And when people saw him in a different role in that movie, they pointed at the screen and shouted, "Superman!" And apparently, according to him, that's when he knew his career was screwed.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't be recognized as anything but.
I think at the time, I think the Superman was also canceled, but I think at the time of his death, at least I heard in one or two places, that they had decided to renew the show after all and bring him back.
Well, maybe. They were in talks, but it sounds like a couple days before he had been notified that maybe that deal had actually fallen through because they were having a hard time getting people to agree to do it.
But from his perspective, of course, it'd be either way. It'd be kind of a happy, sad thing. I mean, it would be a paycheck, but at the same time, he hated the role.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he called the Superman outfit his monkey suit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he burned it at the end of every season.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
Which is so sad if you think about it from a memorabilia standpoint.
I know. What would that be worth today?
Yeah, if he had just
So
thought,
much
been
money.
like, I'll hang on to these stupid things and I'll sell them in a few years and they'll be worth a boatload of cash. But no, he's like,
He just
screw it,
hated
I'm going
him
to burn
so
this
much.
and have a bottle.
Yeah. So, it sounds like he was struggling to get work, and maybe there was the Superman thing, but it was looking like maybe that wasn't actually going to come through. He was also known to be a party animal, if the events leading up to didn't clue you into that. And late night boozing was pretty common between him and his friends. He had actually been drinking that night again and was very drunk, 0.27 drunk.
That's pretty respectable.
Which is
3 times the limit. Yeah.
real drunk.
A lot.
And he also happened to be on painkillers from injuries that he had sustained from a car accident a couple weeks beforehand. And we'll talk about that
Banged
car
up with his right
accident.
hand, I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
we'll talk about that car accident in a little bit.
But
Don't spoil anything.
No, all I want to say is he racked up his Jaguar, which
did.
must have been heartbreaking for him.
Yes.
Maybe that's why he killed himself.
Maybe. Yeah. All these things put together makes an okay start to the official theory. You know, you're kind of down on your luck, prone to depression, you're super, super drunk, you're on painkillers, you know, you've maybe just had a big fight with your fiance. For whatever reason, it's at least an okay start to the idea that that might lead somebody to kill themselves. There was also no sign of forced entry, and the guests below said that they didn't hear anything odd. But again, granted, this assumes a lot. It assumes, first of all, this is LA in the 50s in June. So no air conditioning probably. So probably open windows because it's hot. And the layout of the house is such that it'd be easy to get into the master bedroom with nobody seeing you. As to the, we didn't hear anything weird, I'm sure they're
Except
playing
that
music
gunshot.
and being loud
Oh, yeah.
and...
Well, why do you think he came charging downstairs
Because
angrily?
they were being loud.
I'm sure.
No, well, that's literally their story, is they said we were being loud, and he came down and he was angry that we had woken him up because we were being loud. Like, of course, yeah. And this also assumes that, I would assume that Reeves at the time of his going to bed was not the drunkest of the group, and he did not continue to drink really. So the group that continued to drink would have been probably even more intoxicated than
Well, I don't know if that's true, because he according to this, not too long after he went back upstairs, the shot happened, and they weren't home for very long, and him in bed before the friends showed up. So it's not as if there was a great span of time in between that. I would say that they were all probably around the same level of intoxication.
Right, that's what I'm what I'm trying to get out, is that
I don't
they
think
were...
you can actually get much higher than 0.27 without dying anyway, right?
Yeah, well, people have tried.
Yeah, a lot of them have. But it depends on... I think probably everybody was about that same level. So this also assumes that they would have been coherent and observant enough to notice if anything weird was going on. Oh, and also it assumes they were telling the truth.
Yeah,
right?
There's that.
There's that too.
I do wonder about that, yeah.
Now, George Reeves's mother, you will remember, was a figure in this at one point. She really did not agree with the suicide ruling.
It's kind of ironic when you think about it.
Yeah. It really is.
Yeah.
I'm sure she was like, no, he's just getting back at me. Getting back at me for lying to him all these years. She was not happy with this finding for whatever reason. She retained attorney Jerry Giesler to petition for a reinvestigation of the case as maybe a murder. So they did a second autopsy on Reeves's body, and the findings were exactly the same as the first, except that there was a series of bruises of unknown origin around his head and body. And then this investigation went on for about a month. It didn't uncover any new evidence, and so basically they had to decide that yes, the gunshot wound was self-inflicted and he did commit suicide. So unfortunately that investigation was withdrawn, and the official cause of death remains suicide. I don't think he killed himself.
Well, it's a little hanky, I got to admit. There's some reason to think not.
I mean, people say, well, George Reeves was depressed for years over the fact that he was, pigeonholed into playing Superman. Yeah, he'd been doing it for 7 or 8 years. You would think that if it was going to have gotten to him, it would have, to the point that he would want to end his life, it would have been prior to that.
Well, except for the fact that it happens to coincide with this, maybe glimmer of hope of, again, bittersweet, but that they were talking about reviving it, and then maybe it had fallen through. So maybe that ended up being kind of the last straw, where he kind of thought, oh, this is looking better. At least I can go be Superman again and make some money and be like, maybe I'm not going to love it, but whatever. And then it fell through, and he was like, "Oh, I can't even be Superman anymore." Great.
Well, and his road show that he was putting together was kind of falling apart. Did you
Everything-
read about that?
Yeah.
So, do you want to tell people about this?
Why don't you tell people about
he
it?
would go to he would do these exhibition matches as Superman against, well-known boxing or wrestling figures, and have they duke it out. And he had done this several times. This is a way to generate cash. And on his latest one, he'd been training for 3 or 4 weeks.
Which might account for the bruises.
Which
on his
could
face.
very well account
Yeah.
for the bruising, because
Yeah.
he was, sparring. But he found out that of all, I don't remember how many people he put out feelers to say, come on, you want to get on board? Only one of them said yes. So the whole thing was basically tanked right then and there.
Yeah.
Which is a reason for a guy to be upset and depressed. But
Well, yeah, because he probably needed the money.
yeah.
Yeah. I think he
I mean,
did.
as much as he hated Superman, it was his cash cow.
Yeah, it's true. So let's talk about some of the stuff that makes people think that maybe Reeves was actually murdered,
Okay.
aside from the fact that there's not really a reason for suicide.
Okay.
Okay. As mentioned, I think it is possible that somebody could have easily entered the house without anybody downstairs having seen it, or without any signs of forced entry.
But wait, Devin, whenever you read this on the internet, they say he died in a windowless room.
Well, maybe
I've
the
heard
room that he was in was windowless, but the bathroom it was attached to wasn't.
Nor the bedroom that was right next door to
Yeah.
it. I know, I just love to read that on the internet.
so
it's on those websites that have the black background with the white text, too.
Yeah, those are our favorites. Reeves' home was a split-level home. They called it a splanch, I think, because it was a split-level ranch home. So, and there's drawings out there. I think we'll probably link to one of them, because I can't describe it as well as a drawing can, but I'm going to try real hard. The way that it was set up was there was the master bedroom, and for those of you who don't know what a master bedroom is, it's a bedroom with a bathroom attached to it. Ta-da!
Oh, there you go, master. I love the master.
And the master bathroom had a window that opened right onto the roof of the house.
A small window.
Small, but I mean, somebody could
Yeah.
climb through it. It's not so small that it'd be impossible.
The size of window that teenagers use to escape on rendezvous at night on a regular basis.
Yeah, pretty much. And the roof that bedroom window opened onto was above the den, which was connected to the family room, which the family room was below the bedroom, is my understanding of that house.
It was, upper floor was master bedroom. There was a lower floor was the living room and den, and then the second bedroom was the mid-level one. It was in between the two.
But the den was...
that's why they call it the split level.
Right, but the living room was under the bedroom, and the den just had a roof over it.
Right.
Yes. And then in between those two, there was a part that went out, and there was a guest bedroom. But it would have
And
been...
there were windows into that room as well from a part of the house that could easily be observed.
But I don't have a good sense of if... I don't actually know where. I think the party was in the den, but they could have been in the living room. I don't actually know which area they were in, because they were kind of connected. And I don't know if from where that group was, if you could see into the guest bedroom or into the hallway. So if it were me breaking into this house, I would just go for the bathroom window and call it a day. And again, the roof above, so that means somebody's walking on the roof above where these people are, but these people are being loud, so...
So regardless, there are multiple points of entry other than the front door.
And again, I'll reiterate that I have not ever seen that the windows were open or not, but I cannot imagine being in LA in June.
They were probably open.
Without the windows open. Just my 2 cents. In addition to the fact that it'd be pretty easy for somebody to actually have gotten into the house without forcing entry, there are some kind of odd findings at the crime scene. There were no fingerprints on the gun, no muzzle discharge burns, the kind that are usually found in cases like this.
On his head.
On his head. There is a report that there was no gunshot residue found on Reeves' hand, but I don't actually think that they tested for that at this time in history. So I want to throw that in there because you're going to see that parroted like everywhere, but I want to give you also the information that it's probably not legitimate.
I actually have a question for Joe.
Yeah.
Okay, Joe, I've read in a number of places that say there were no fingerprints on the gun because it was too well oiled.
Yeah.
Do you know what they mean by that?
Well,
Other than the fact that, the oil would just fill in and...
no, I mean, it's like a lot of gun owners are really, especially when you have a really nice gun, you don't want to rust it. And especially when you handle the gun, you have a lot of acids and things that are in your sweat.
Right.
And so a lot of people will wipe their gun down after they've played with it or used it or whatever, wipe it down with an oily rag.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's got oil on it, that doesn't mean you're not going to leave fingerprints.
Okay.
But if you say been playing with your gun and then you wipe it off, because you don't want rust, and then you put it away or whatever, then you decide to kill yourself, you pick the gun up. A Luger's got wooden hand grips on it, and so assuming you don't play with it, pass it around hand to hand, stuff like that, it's quite conceivable you can actually pick up a handgun and shoot it and not leave your fingerprints. You'd leave some prints on the front strap of the gun from the middle of your fingers, but your actual fingerprints from the end of your fingers that we all know as a classic fingerprints, you could conceivably not leave them on the gun.
Okay, that explains. I read that in several places, and I was like, I don't quite get it, but I know who will probably have the answer.
It's gonna be Joe. If it's about a gun, it's gonna be Joe.
Oh, maybe. Not that I know anything about guns, really.
No, not really.
But oil will hold fingerprints.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. The way you explained it makes way more sense than it was too well oiled to retain a fingerprint. I was like, that doesn't make any sense.
Oh, and the other thing, I said that the Luger has wooden grips on it. And by the way, they were checkered grips, which means they weren't smooth, so you couldn't
get
a fingerprint on them.
Texture,
yeah.
So, on top of all of that, the fatal bullet was retrieved from the ceiling above him.
Weird.
Which is weird because he was shot through the temple.
Directly above him, or just somewhere?
I have
above him?
never been able to find that out.
Me neither. I think probably somewhere above.
I think
not
somewhere
directly.
above.
Because otherwise, that would mean he'd have to turn his head 90 degrees,
right.
which is like.
So I'm actually going to I'm going to describe a little bit, and then I'm going to show you guys in the studio what I imagine happened if he did in fact kill himself.
Okay.
The shell casing from the bullet was found under his body. He shot himself in the temple through the right temple, which again is significant because you may have heard Joe mention, or Steve mention, that he had severely injured his right hand. Though again, if he was drunk and on a lot of painkillers, you can ignore stuff like that. So it sounds like his head could have been like tilted. I kind of just mentioned, I'm just going to do it real quick. I just kind of imagine him being so drunk that he's just kind of like... what Devin is enacting is if you've ever seen a bored teenager in junior high with their arm on their desk and their head tilted all the way over on their straight arm,